Good morning, everybody. We're waiting for just a couple of minutes for people to jump in to our Facebook Live. Hope you're having a good day today. We'll wait a little bit for people to come in. All right. Hello, everybody. Let's start. My name is Peter Diaz. I'm from the Workplace Mental Health Institute. I'm the CEO. I'm going to be talking about mental health risks, especially during the Covid-19 era. I'm going to call it the Covid-19 era. It's definitely interesting times. So that you understand why I'm talking about mental health, why I'm talking with Asthma Australia, a little bit of my personal history. During the 1990s, I did suffer some bout of depression and bipolar disorder, so I know what it is like to have mental health problems. Fortunately, I got myself recovered out of that, and then I went on to study mental health and social work. So I'm not just here as someone that has had a mental health issue and that qualifies him or her to speak about it to other people. It's not like that. I'm actually a professional, I'm qualified. And I'm here talking to you from the asthma perspective as well, because I have suffered from bouts of asthma, so I have my own little, this will be very familiar to people with asthma. When I was growing up, I was having asthma issues, and at the time, in those times, we didn't have this miracle little puffer, and it was very, very scary. It was, I can remember those days as something that it was scary. And I was very afraid, and when I had my asthma bouts, and I couldn't breathe. So when this COVID-19 came along and they explained what it was, how it attacks the lungs, it's a little bit of a different experience, isn't it? If you've suffered asthma and somebody tells you from a theoretical perspective what it's like not to be able to breathe. But if you have suffered that, it brings a different kind of meaning to the whole thing. So I'm very honored and privileged that Asthma Australia has brought me along or invited me to do a Facebook Live. By the way, guys, just letting you know, this is my first official Facebook Live. So I may not be as polished as some other people that have done it before, but I thought I'd give it a go and have a chat with you. COVID-19, this is an interesting era. There's definitely a lot of fear. We can see a tsunami of mental health issues coming our way, in the work front, in the life front. We can see ongoing issues from this lockdown that we have experienced in some places to a greater degree than others. I'm actually talking to you from Madrid, Spain at the moment. Got stuck here during the lockdown, and definitely this lockdown has been very rigid, and this is has been considered the epicenter, still is, of the coronavirus for the whole of Spain. It hasn't been easy to be locked down for over 2 months now. But definitely you can see people, there's a lot of fear. A lot of people have lost their jobs. I know that in Australia, a lot of our citizens have also, Australians have lost their jobs as well. And this is going to have an effect, not just from an employment perspective, but also from a mental health perspective. We know that that happens. It happens during lockdowns, and it happens during unemployment. So the topics that the questions that people have asked are definitely very relevant. Things like what is anxiety, what are the signs of anxiety, how does COVID impact on all of this? So let's start with an easy one. What is anxiety? And that's a very good question, because you see, the thing about mental health issues, they're so personal. It's a very individual experience. So we try to, when we diagnose people, we try to put them under a certain diagnosis so we can understand it as therapists. Of course, we're not, I'm sure that when you ask the question, what is anxiety, you're not so much after an official definition, because that's easy to find in Google. For example, the American Psychological Association defines it as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. Not sure it tells you very much. But everybody, by the way, everybody experiences anxiety. It's a normal emotion. It's there to protect you. It's there to keep you safe. So as a human being, we do come into a world and our survival is important. And we have a system in which our fear is triggered if for some reason we're going to get into tricky situations. That's anxiety at its raw core. So can you get rid of anxiety? Well, it wouldn't be to your advantage to get rid of anxiety. It's part of who you are, it's part of the makeup that protects you. So what kind of anxiety are we talking about here? Obviously, that type of anxiety that if it goes on for a long time, it becomes uncomfortable, it becomes problematic, you can't function, you can't, and it can even hurt you, it can even make you unwell. There are many ways to experience anxiety, but at its core, anxiety is an expression of fear. And so what kind of fear? Well, all of the fears. We used to be afraid of dinosaurs once upon a time. We used to be afraid if we were in the jungle, or, life used to be really, really tough. And in some places of the world still is. So you need your anxiety to protect you. In the modern world, we see a different kind of anxiety. We don't have to be afraid of the lion anymore. We don't have to be afraid of the dinosaur. Those immediate fears are not present for people. So then we still gotta worry about our survival. This is one thing about human beings. We seem to have an innate need to worry. And if we don't have a clear danger, we will make it up. I tend to say that we're addicted to drama as people. And with that addiction comes more fear. So that's what anxiety is at its core, fear. Now, you can have, obviously, differing grades or degrees of fear. The less fear you have, the better it is. You can handle that fear. If you have a lot of fear, that turns into extreme anxiety. That can become very disruptive. And you can have different fears for different things. You can have phobias. And it's interesting that at the moment with Covid-19, we are seeing a rise in anxiety in people. And it's also very interesting as a therapist to see what's happening. And the media, how it's telling us, they're reminding us to do certain behaviors that over the years, what we have done is help people because they were symptomatic of problems in people. For example, we're being told all the time to wash your hands, which is, by the way, good advice. Washing your hands is probably one of the few evidence-based advices that we're getting at the moment that has been proven to work. Wash your hands. But you can overdo this as anything, and this was one of the problems we usually deal with people that are having OCD, obsessive compulsive behaviors. Now we're all being told to do this. We're told to wear masks, to wear gloves, to not touch other people. So you can understand how people of all ages can be quite anxious and fearful in the COVID-19 area. This is not normal. These are not normal times. What are some of the signs of anxiety? Well, restlessness, a feeling of being on edge, and being nervous, uncontrollable feelings of worry that sometimes you can't get rid of, increased irritability, so it could be angry or react to things very easily, concentration difficulties, makes it hard to think, makes it hard to focus, and there can be a problem if you're having to perform and do a job. Sleep difficulties, such as problems in falling or staying asleep. So maybe that some people go to sleep and then fine, but then they wake up in the middle of the night and they can't get back to sleep. Or some people don't get to sleep until very, very late at night. So symptoms of anxiety can be very different for different people. So what does that mean? Well, if we understand the problem, if we understand what our triggers of anxiety are, then we can deal with it. Actually, anxiety is a very treatable condition, as I said, because why is it so? Because it's a natural human emotion. Then we are also naturally designed or crafted to be able to control it. So it's not necessarily something that happens to you, although some people it can happen to you, but it can also be something self-produced. Or I'll give you an example. For example, in the cases of anxiety where it happens to you, it could be that you're having an allergic reaction. That's one of them. So you feel anxiety because you're having anxiety. Your body is being taxed, and it's being put under stress and pressure, and then you may experience anxiety. The body's trying to tell you, hey, we need to change something to make it better. Another one that I've noticed, for example, when I do take my inhaler, about a day or two later, I tend to become quite grumpy. I didn't notice it for years, and then eventually it dawned on me, hang on, there's a connection there. Now my family notices it. If I get very grumpy, they say, you've taken your Ventolin, haven't you? And I say, yeah, I've been taking that. So different reasons. It can be chemical. It can be hormones that drives some anxiety. And then there's the other aspect, the anxiety that we create ourselves or we maintain ourselves. How do we do that? Well, sometimes we may start feeling an anxiety feeling, and then instead of stopping whatever you're doing and thinking logically around it, it could be that you start thinking in your head with things that scare you even more. Yeah. So I'm locked up, Covid-19, and I see an ad telling me to wash my hands, and then I start thinking about virus. This is an example. Yeah. I start thinking about viruses and about how many viruses around me. I don't have to do this, but if I let my brain get away with it, it could increase the anxiety that I'm feeling. Definitely increases the fear. So I see a lot of people, as a therapist, I see a lot of people do that. And they start with a small thought and they keep thinking and aggrandizing, making that thought bigger and bigger until they really give themselves a lot of trouble. So, yeah, so that's a good thing to know, because if we realize when and how we do anxiety, then we've got things we can do, and I'll talk about them later. A good question here is, what is stress? You know, stress again is a form of fear. It's a response to a stimuli that gets out of hand. And let me tell you something about pressure and stress. In our society, we tend to confuse pressure and stress, where you see people talking about being stressed all the time, or I have a lot of stress at work. But when you ask them a question, it just means that they're very busy. They're not stressed, they're experiencing pressure. But some people are stressed. They're anxious. So stress is a form of anxiety. So what happens? In order for pressure to become stress, it has to go to the brain. It has to be processed as something negative. So pressure doesn't have a negativity or positivity either way. Pressure is pressure. Life is about pressure. The yin and yang, you know. So tension, you need tension to have life. Life is tension. And a certain degree of tension is good. So when does it turn into stress? When our brain or we somehow decide, because sometimes we're not very aware that we're deciding, that this pressure can hurt us. I'll give you an example. I go into work in the morning, and well, now probably those of us that can go into work in the morning, and the boss doesn't say hello or smile, they just walk by. And some people go, uh-oh, I'm in trouble with the boss. All of a sudden they're feeling stressed because this thought has come into their head. But do they know that? Or could it be something else? The boss could just be busy. It could just be not thinking about them, or just not being aware of what they're doing because they're focused. So that's an example. But look at it from a different perspective. Places where people love the idea of pressure. So if you go to a gym, you will see people that are exercising, and what are they doing? They're putting pressure on their bodies. Why? Because that pressure is understood as healthy. It's going to have a good result on my life, on my body. So here we have an example of pressure that doesn't get turned into anxiety, doesn't get turned into stress. If anything, it gets turned into excitement. So pressure that gets interpreted positively can turn into excitement. Oh my God, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be good looking. If my muscles hurt, that's a good point. Pressure that is seen as negative, this is something going to hurt me, it's turned into stress. So we do have a degree of control over our thoughts and how we process things, and the meanings that we're giving to our brain and how we are dealing with that. So just be aware of that not all pressure needs to be turned into stress. In actual fact, a lot of the pressure that we experience can be turned into excitement. And that's why some people go to work, and if they're really passionate about what they do and they love what they're doing, they can do long hours and they don't experience stress. If anything, they want more because they're excited. They see that pressure as a good sign. It means something positive. Other people work 9 to 5 and barely can handle it because they're seeing that as a negative. Maybe it's keeping them away from the family. It's not really what they want to do. It's not a passion of theirs, whatever it is. But they see that as a stress. So the other question is, when does stress become anxiety? Then stress is a form of anxiety. So it can become more marked, more severe. So you got to be careful. If you're feeling stress, you need to do stuff to handle it. And we'll talk about some of the treatments in a few minutes. So that brings us to depression. So let me tell you one thing. Fear, if you don't handle it, fear is a common feeling that we all have. It's something common to all human beings. It protects us. If we don't handle fear, it turns into anxiety. It can turn into very severe anxiety, and that can be problematic, quite problematic. And in actual fact, some research shows that people with very severe anxiety have got more suicidal thoughts and more likely to complete suicide. So we've got to be careful with this. But if we don't deal with anxiety, it's interesting that for 6.4% of people, it will turn into depression. So anxiety is a way of the body to say, hey, come on, you gotta hurry up, you gotta do something, we have to change our lives or our way of thinking, how we process things, we gotta take action. If we don't pay attention to that, then the mind can do an interesting thing. It can go, all right, we're not coping, and we're just going to just stop whatever we're doing, and we're not gonna do anything until we deal with whatever is going on. I mean, basically, I am in overwhelm. And that's what is experienced as depression. When one is in overwhelm, your brain goes, stop, put the brakes on, we're not gonna do anything now. That's it, it's been too much. And that's when people start feeling sad, they feel down, they have a loss of interest, they stop enjoying things that they used to enjoy before. They have a lack of purpose in their lives. because something is off. Something is off. And the interesting thing is that most of the time people are not aware of why this is happening. It's quite interesting. And I see a lot of people saying, well, why don't people go and talk to other people about the problem, especially men? Why don't men go and talk to others? If they talk about their problems, then it would be okay. Well, I can tell you, looking back at my experience, and also what I've learned in giving therapy to people, is that often people are not aware of what the problem is. So you can't really talk about something that you don't understand, especially the male mind. We like to have a handle on things, or at least understand things before we can talk about it. So it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky to talk when you don't know what's going on. In my case, not only didn't know what was going on, but I was in complete denial, and I thought that my life was pretty perfect. I had ticked all the boxes in my life. So I understand that depression from that perspective, that you probably look from the outside, you've ticked all the boxes, you think it's fine, you don't see any reason why you should be anxious, you're very comfortable, so it doesn't make any sense why you don't have that internal drive. Now, what are the causes of anxiety and stress? Again, I'll go back to that because this is very important. There are some biological causes of anxiety and depression. You can have, for example, hormonal changes, both men and women. Women have hormonal changes, for example, during depression, monthly, and later on in life, they have hormonal changes, but men do too. One of the less understood hormonal changes, or less recognized hormonal changes in men, is as we get older, our testosterone levels drop quite a bit. And I've seen a lot of older or more mature gentlemen go into depression when they've never had depression before. Their life situation hasn't changed, and sometimes it's because of that testosterone levels having dropped. Now, some things you can deal with, and other things you can't deal with. So those are hormonal changes, other biological changes, life. What am I thinking of? Chemicals. If you take some chemicals, whether known to you or unknown to you, that can also make you anxious and depressed. Allergies can make you anxious and depressed. Your body's trying to cope. So there's a raft of things that can go at the physical level wrong. Then there's the other ones that, and sometimes it's very hard to tell, because once you go down this slippery slope, your mind starts playing tricks with you. The other one is the psychological aspect of things. So you start thinking or contemplating things, and you start ruminating on what happened. Women tend to do that. They tend to ruminate. According to the research, if you give a man a problem and they can't solve it, they try to shelve it away. They try not to think about it, not to talk about it. But women tend to come back to it again and again and again and again, and that can be also problematic for your mental health. So that's something to take into consideration. So again, what are the signs of depression? The signs of depression, I've mentioned a few, but I'll tell them again. Sadness, feeling down, devoid of purpose, unproductive. That's a big one. You don't have a drive. You've lost your mojo, loss of interest in daily activities, lack of pleasure in doing things that you used to like before, and avoidance. You could be avoiding people. You could be avoiding your loved ones. You don't want to talk to anybody. You find it hard to be with yourself, let alone with other people. It takes energy and effort to put on a good face for people. And if you're depressed, you may not want to do that. A lot of people may not want to do that. And then there's the anger and resentment. It could be anger and resentment. So usually there's a lot of anger and resentment towards yourself. You direct it inwards because you have this idea that you should be okay. You should be okay. Everybody else is. So you start comparing yourself with others, and you can drive a lot of internal inner words, resentment and anger. But it can also go outside and be really resentful with what's going on around you. So I think now that we're on the second month of lockdown and restrictions, we're seeing a lot of people start becoming really resentful and angry with the authorities that have allowed this to happen. People are trying to make sense of it. People are starting to rebel. So this is a fairly normal journey through feelings, and this can also depress people. What are some of the treatments for anxiety and depression? There are many treatments. There are many treatments, and they're as varied as you can think of. Let's start with anxiety. Anxiety is a very treatable condition or emotion. Of course, the best thing to do with anxiety is to deal with it early, and think of simple things. Think of things like, what is it that relaxes me? Be very honest. I think the best thing for people to do is, if they've never done it, sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and talk and think frankly, what are the things that relax me? It could be having a cup of tea, or having a cup of chamomile. It's very effective calming people, chamomile, or some other herbs that you have found that works for you. Some people say, oh no, that doesn't work for my anxiety. Fine. Find out what works for your anxiety. What works for my anxiety at some time might not work for other times, or it may be completely useless for your anxiety. I know that sometimes a nice cup of strong chamomile relaxes me, gets me to sleep. What other things I can do? I can do a gratitude list. Have you ever heard of gratitude lists? I'm not sure if you're aware of those, but you just sit down and write it down. What are you grateful for? The little things. In this case, the best thing to do is the little things that you're grateful for. Write it down. Do you enjoy, the feeling of the sheets in the morning in your bed? Write it down. What about a cool glass of water? Write it down. What about the other things that we take for granted, like having running water at home? For most of human history, no one had running water at home. This is incredible. And guess what? Now we have it hot, so we can shower with it. This is a complete luxury. But we could forget these things very, very easily, couldn't we? If we take it for granted. There's a lot of things that we take for granted. Taking for granted is really dangerous for human beings, because then we forget how privileged we are, and then we can start experiencing anxiety. But just the idea of doing a gratitude list, writing things down, just experience it. It can have a very, very calming effect. And it takes you to the other side of the coin, where you start feeling a little bit happy inside. But what about if you can't do that? Well, do something else. Would talking to a friend, would that help you? What about texting a friend? Just connecting. How about saying thank you to someone that has loved you for a long time, and you know that? You may not be able to feel it, because if you're feeling anxious or depressed, sometimes it's very hard to feel it. But you know that they love you. You know that they have been a good friend, or a good mother, or a good father, or a good teacher. But you've never said thank you. How about doing that as an exercise and see how that feels? But find the things that makes you. And of course, if you're an adult, there are certain things that adults can do that also makes them feel very relaxed in a private setting, and you know what it is. So those things can be very useful for anxiety. There are some medications for anxiety. I would leave it if you absolutely have to. You don't want to teach your mind to rely on strong medications to deal with psychological problems early on. this is something that you should use very, very carefully if you're going to use it. I don't recommend it. Don't recommend the use of medication, but I understand. Having used them. I understand that some people may feel so desperate that they're willing to try anything. I understand that. But there's so many other things that you can do. What about exercise? Exercise is fantastic for the anxiety. It releases your endorphins. It's fantastic for anxiety, and it's brilliant for depression. Actually works better than medication for depression to do a bit of exercise. Now, we're not talking about going crazy in the gym, lifting a lot of weight, etc. But just good old walking, if that's all you can handle, just walk. Don't take the lift if you live, if you can avoid it. Park your car far away from the door of the shops. Just make sure that you put yourself in situations where your body's getting some exercise. Remember, sitting is the new smoking. Sitting down all the time can be causing a lot of anxiety. Why? Well, we don't exactly know why, but we do know that we are, as a society, we're generally eating a lot of calories, sometimes more than we need. And if the body needs to use those calories, if you're not using them, then it stores them up, but it's going to create a situation internally where it's going to try to tell you, hey, we need to move, we need to shake things around, so we're burning calories and we keep healthy. So this is important. It is important that we do get some kind of exercise. If you can make it regularly every week, that'd be great. If you have to trick yourself into being active, do so. But be active. That's important, very important. Otherwise, you will experience anxiety and depression at some point. What about medication for depression? Again, the same thing. Depression is actually very treatable. There are things that you can do, like exercise. If you have depression, I highly recommend that you start an exercise regime. If you're not very good at exercising, could you consider getting a personal trainer at least once a week that comes, if they can come to your door and wake you up and get you out of bed to do exercise, even better. But get it done somehow, or maybe a friend that comes and gets you. And also, besides exercise, go and talk to a professional. If you have a friend that you really respect their life and you wouldn't mind your life looking like theirs, and then you know that they're mature, well, go and talk to them. Tell them what's going on. And if you don't know what's going on, go and talk to them and tell them, listen, I'm feeling down. I'm feeling down in the dumps. And guess what? I don't know why, because everything is perfect. That's also okay as a conversation to get it started. But the other thing is, if you don't have a friend to talk to, or if you do have a friend but you want to keep it private, this might be a very, very good time to go and talk to a professional, somebody that can help you explore your own thinking. A lot of the depression that I've seen has got really, really twisted thinking behind it. Very logical, by the way, very logical thinking, however, not necessarily realistic thinking. It's very catastrophic. And we want to avoid that kind of thinking. And professionals can be very good at picking up and holding the mirror to ourselves and asking the questions, the tough questions that need to be asked in order for us to get out of those dumps. And of course, as I said before, some people, after all that, they've tried everything, they still feel extremely and severely depressed. So maybe that's when medication for some people is an option. I would be very wary, because psychiatric drugs have got some of them very severe side effects. So the jury is still out there as to the benefits of them, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't use them. I'm saying that you have to be very careful how you use them. Preferably, you would use them for a short time, and then remember that if you are taking medications, don't don't drop them. Do not just stop taking them. You need to take them, and you need to come out. They have very severe withdrawal reactions. So if you want to leave your medications because you think that this is you've had enough of them, or it's time or whatever, I'm not saying that you should drop them. If you do want to do that, though, go back to a health professional, to your doctor or to your psychiatrist, whoever has given them to you, and tell them what you want to do, and then they will put you in a withdrawal program. It's very important that you do that because they can be very dangerous. Withdrawal can be very dangerous. So what are the links between anxiety, depression, and asthma? Looking back on my own experience, I was a very anxious, very sensitive child. I can't say that I ever experienced asthma without anxiety. Of course, it's there. I've never seen anyone having an asthma attack that wasn't anxious. You get very anxious. So that's kind of an obvious question, isn't it? So there are very, very strong links. Depending on the school of thought, there's different reasons why people get asthma. I think a reaction to dust and pollen. In my case, I seem to have allergies to dust and pollen, but hard to avoid, dust and pollen, and that can be triggering the asthma. It's interesting. There's a shop around here that they must be using a special kind of cleaner for the floors. But every time I go into that shop, I start coughing. I never cough anywhere, but in that shop, which right now with the COVID-19 situation, it's an interesting situation to be in, coughing anywhere. But it only happens in that shop, and I'm sure it's the cleaner, the cleaning fluid. Sorry, there's some fumes in it, not the cleaner, not the actual cleaner, but the cleaning fluid, the fumes, and it makes me cough. So obviously there's something in my body reacting to that. You may have worked out what causes your anxiety, or what environment does that. But it is quite common to experience anxiety under these circumstances. It can be also common and normal if some people get very strong asthma all the time and they feel that their life is pretty much over, to feel depressed. So just be careful about those thoughts. But remember, there are many things that can be done, and nowadays with the internet, you can find a lot of exercises and a lot of treatments online. So I invite you to do that. What impacts can stress, anxiety, and depression have on behavior? Oh God, many. From an asthma perspective or health perspective, some people avoid visiting health professionals. It's interesting how many people start talking to a psychologist or a social worker or psychiatrist, and then they stop doing it, or they start criticizing the health professional as not being good enough. So just be aware of that. It could be that they're not good enough. It could be that they're not connecting with you. It could be that there's a poor match, maybe personality clashes. It doesn't mean that they're a bad professional, but personality clashes. That's fine. Look for somebody else. Having said that, I immediately think if you're depressed, it may be hard for you to think, oh my God, I have to look for someone else. And that process of looking for someone else could be a little bit overwhelming. If that's the case, get a friend or a relative to help you. Now, I'll say to help you in the process, not necessarily to do it for you. This is something we've got to be very careful. We have to do part of the work, otherwise it won't work. But they can help you. They can help you out with the process. Another thing that they can do, avoiding support from health professionals. When you've had an asthma flare-up, you need to call your GP or hospital. There's also the 000. Don't wait. Do it straight away. Most of you are pretty much on top of this. Some people drop their regular asthma medication and they really need it. I know that I can become cocky with my asthma treatment, and but sometimes I have to say, no, not this time. Now I have to go in for a few weeks and I have to do the right thing until it passes over. it also, some people try to increase, sorry, in order to cope with anxiety and depression, what they do is they take on risk seeking behaviors. They may increase the smoking or take up smoking, or drinking, um, self-medicating, basically drinking alcohol or cannabis, etc., to alleviate those feelings of stress, of anxiety. And I don't blame them. I think I've done everything under the sun in order to deal with anxiety and depression. I think looking at people all the world over, that's what human beings do. We feel an emotion that we're uncomfortable with. We try to somehow drown it. And that's okay, but remember, if you have in Australia, I find a lot of people that like to have that drink at the end of the day, uh, that wine or a couple of wines in order to unwind at the end of the day. Uh, that's fine, but don't let it be your only anxiety treatment, because it can definitely catch up with you. Um, Increasing the eating. That's, yeah, the amount of people that have told me during this COVID-19 crisis that the most walking that they do is from the sofa to the fridge. It's quite a lot of people that are doing that, isn't it? So you do get, like, have you noticed maybe that you're just there and nothing to do and getting a little bit anxious, and you go to the fridge and get ice cream, usually nothing healthy. So just be watching that too, because weight gain is something not good for your anxiety and your depression. It's something that needs to be handled, which is a catch-22 with some of the medications for psychiatric drugs. They actually make you put on a lot of weight very quickly, and they leave you open for diabetes. So you got to be careful with that too. Um, so those are things that you need to be aware. But as I say, anxiety and depression are very, very treatable. Very few people experience depression and anxiety to the degree where they need to be hospitalized, um, or medicated. So just be aware of that. Um, there are many other things that will bring you better results. Exercise usually brings better results. And not only will it bring better results, but it will improve your whole life. So, how can you stay connected throughout the COVID-19 crisis to help support your mental health? You have a lot of resources, um, but look around you, look at who is closer to you, your friends, and your family. And I know in Australia, we still can go and visit people, which is great. The restrictions are being dropped, which is great. Um, what happens? What happens in the case where you don't have family or friends around you? Well, we live in an online world. You're obviously listening to the Facebook Live. You have a computer or a phone. You're connected to the internet. So you can develop friends that way. But nobody calls me. But nobody reaches out. I get that. I think as mature human beings, what we need to do is we need to reach out. We need to send a text. We need to send an email. We need to make a phone call. Reach out. Don't wait for the other person to do it. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. Remember, if you're reaching out to your friends, make it meaningful. Make it worth their time too. Be generous in your giving. You make them feel good. If you can't, if you really need to just connect, but just do so. Where can you go for support, professional support? Well, I think we have a lot of services in Australia. We've got Lifeline. The number for Lifeline is 131114, 131114, and they're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can talk to them. There's Kids Helpline for kids. The number for that is 1800 551 800, but you can also find it online, 1800 551 800. There's Beyond Blue. They also provide services, beyondblue.org.au. Head to Health, headtohealth.gov.au, and they provide online and phone support as well if you need to talk to somebody. And it's a good idea. Don't, I think one of the mistakes that I made throughout my life, if this is worth it, and I see a lot of people doing that now, is we wait too long to connect and ask for help. The longer you wait, the more desperate you will be, the more confused you will be. So if you just touch base, I was talking to a psychologist last week, and she was telling me, wouldn't it be nice if people had just a psychology touch-up every 6 months? It would be really good, and it would do them a world of good. So that, I'm a strong believer in going and getting a coach or a psychologist that can coach you, and you go in and just touch base every so often and say, hey, there's nothing wrong that I can think of, but I just thought I'd come in and talk to you about what's going on in my life and help it make some sense out of it. I think that's brilliant. That would be brilliant. Then also for men is Men's Line, telephone counseling, very important, 1300 789978, and you can talk to a counselor anywhere and anytime as well. Yeah, so this is it. This is mental health. Couple of messages that I'd like you to take away is anxiety and depression are extreme forms of what is a basic emotion, which is fear. You can't get rid of fear. Fear is there to protect you. Fear loves you. You need to embrace your fear. Don't let it ruin your life though. You're in control. You can be in control. And there are treatments, or there are things, very practical things that you can do to get in control of that fear. You just need to control it. You just need to shape it so it becomes your servant, not your master. And then things that you can do, at number one, I would go and exercise, get some regular exercise into you if you can. Make sure that you have friends that you connect with. When you connect with your friends or family, make sure that you're generous with them. Make sure that you connect with your health professional. Make sure that you're taking care of your physical ailments. If you have asthma and you need to take a medication, do so. And then make sure that you also talk to other type of professionals, like a psychologist, a social worker, a counselor, a therapist, a well-qualified coach, whoever it is, to make sense of life. That's very important. That's going to give you a sense of purpose. So those are the things that I'd like you to take away. Remember, anxiety and depression are very treatable. And if you want to reach out to me, my website, WMHI, the WMHI for Workplace Mental Health Institute.com, the WMHI, and just reach out to me and send me an email if you like. All right, it's been a pleasure. I hope my first Facebook Live was okay with you guys. It's very strange to talk to you without seeing you, but I've survived it, and I hope you got something out of it. All right, have a wonderful day. Have a mentally healthy day. Bye-bye.